All right, welcome back to Interviews with the Gurus. And in this episode, we have back Dr. Santhip Kanholy. Thank you so much for joining us again. And in this video, we're going to continue the series of the Navagraha through the Nakshatras. And this video is about Mercury or Budh through the Nakshatras. So
yeah, sure. Thanks again, Katya, for inviting back to your channel and continuing the series on the grahas. So I think we'll kind of look into understanding Mercury, which is the next planet from the Sun, which is the closest planet to the Sun. Specifically through the lens of the Nakshatras. So I'll actually begin to share my screen here. Let's see. So my screen should be coming through. I'll just play my okay, great. So first of all, I wanted to again, now here what we are trying to do is that we are trying to understand Mercury through the lens of the nakshatras that is linked with Mercury. Now it's kind of what I want to highlight is that we already know the Mercury ruled signs, we already know the Mercury ruled nakshatras, and then of course we also have been looking at the nakshatras where planet is getting exalted and debilitated, as well as its Mulatrikon nakshatras. And these nakshatras, all nakshatras are actually pointing to the energies of Mercury. So that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to understand it more, understanding the energies of the graha more. And we kind of demonstrate this also with another example of the kind of thinking I'm using here as well, once the first part is over. So here again, we can see that the Mercury ruled nakshatras are basically Ashlesha, Jyeshta, and Revati. They fall in Cancer sign, Scorpio sign, and Pisces. So you have that going on. Now it's very interesting if you think about Ashlesha, Jyeshta, and Revati, because if you think about the deities that are involved there, Ashlesha is actually the deity, is having the deity of the Nagas, the divine serpents. These are the dragons of the zodiac, So definitely with Ashlesha, there is this serpentine kind of energy, which is very much, think about a snake. When you see a snake is crawling on the ground, snake is trying to catch prey and so on, So definitely a snake is immediately pointing to the ground element of this particular placement. And definitely Mercury is a planet that is definitely an earthy kind of planet. So that's also a strong thing there, But what you see is that Ashlesha is also symbolic of the emotional kind of centering, emotional kind of grounding we all need. Ashlesha is literally connected with the coiling that happens. Coiling usually that of a mother to a child. The care from a mother to a child is basically Ashlesha. But then Ashlesha is also the security forces as well, because these are the bouncers who are holding you back, clubs and stuff. It's about to go into a fight, So definitely there is that kind of a thing. So they are coiling up, right? So usually that's an interesting theme here with Ashlesha, the Nagas being the deity here. Now with Jyeshta, the deity of Jyeshta at this point has evolved to that of Indra himself. Indra is actually the king of the Devas. He is the actual king. And there's a lot of power, a lot of control which Indra has. Now you have to remember, Indra is also just a position. It is like a president of the United States. So usually many times these natives can hold very powerful positions as well. And with Jyeshta, what is interesting here is also it is kind of showing the element of the occult power which Indra possesses as well. And you can see that. You need a strong Mercury if you have to really do well in occult studies as well. So that's an easy thing. You can see how the Jyeshta is actually falling in the natural eighth of the occult and so on. And many times, anyone with the Jyeshta planet, they are gifted in the occult sciences. They are into paganism. They've been doing spells and stuff for a really long time. That's a very easy thing you can say as well. Now with Revati, what is finally happening is that the deity of Revati is actually Pushan. Pushan is basically you can consider him as the shepherd who is guiding souls from one plane to the next plane. So usually here again you see the natives with placements here. They are very good at logistics. They have some kind of transport kind of karma. I've seen too many aerosters and airport management people with Revati placement. I've seen that. Usually with Revati again, there is this theme of going into the mystical side as well. Now, what is very interesting with Mercury is Mercury is also the planet that is linked with symbols in our life. So anything symbolic, you're writing a message, you're writing down symbols, you're writing down spellings, you're writing down alphabets and so on. So that is definitely linked with Mercury. And in Revati, you're kind of seeing the higher side of those symbols. In Ashlesha, you see the immediate side, like the alphabets you learn at school, which is basically linked with the fourth house of Cancer. That is Ashlesha. Definitely these natives are very gifted in technical sciences like math and stuff like that in school. You see that very easily with Ashlesha. In Jyeshtha, you're kind of seeing the next level of that kind of a science, which is occult knowledge and so on. Like astrology, numerology, all that kind of sciences. And then in Revati, you're taking it to the mystical sciences, where now you're directly exploring the deepest aspect of your consciousness. And in fact, I think in Reiki, highest level, the deeper you go, you actually, in the level 3 or something, is actually supposed to be a symbol, which you're supposed to meditate on, which is actually indicative of the consciousness that symbol is pointing to. So we are talking at that kind of mystical kind of level with Revati. That's one aspect here. Now, of course, there is an energetic evolution that happens with Ashlesha being the Rajasic nakshatra of Mercury, Jyeshtha being the Tamasic nakshatra, where it's more stabilized, and then you have Revati being the Sattvic nakshatra, where it's much more purified and you're going to the higher realms. So that kind of a traveling is very much linked here. So you're seeing. I'm just talking about the nakshatras, but you can see how the Mercury's energies are coming into play here. There's an important
higher
thing.
knowledge. Yeah. And the thing about Ashlesha, the snake, the poison from the snake can be medicine.
Exactly that, yeah.
That knowledge of the earth and how to use the earth poisons actually as medicine. It's like alchemy in all 3 nakshatras, but at different levels.
Exactly that. So what is poison to one can be medicine to other. It's as straightforward as that. And with Ashlesha, definitely these are very powerful healers. They many times they deal with poisons. Many times they deal with healing linked with removing poisons as well. So that is also very, very powerful. It's something I've seen as well. So usually, in general, a very good remedy if you have a planet in Ashlesha is to simply do detox rituals more frequently. It's as simple as that. I've seen that natives with Ashlesha do need to do a detox at some point. I think that usually helps them out on many fronts. Because Ashlesha itself is carrying that energy of detox. Because of Nagas used to hold poisons within their throat. And they used to carry a lot of powerful healing secrets as well with this particular placement. Okay, so now let's see. Taking it to the next level, you see that Mercury is actually ruling Gemini and Virgo here. You can see that here. And now in Gemini and Virgo, there are, you can say, 6 different nakshatras that are coming into picture. They are Mrigashira, they are Ardra, Punvasu in Gemini sign. You have Uttara Falguni, Hasta, and Chitra in the Virgo side. So now, if you think about Mrigashira is definitely linked with the Deva of Soma, who is the moon god himself. Now, it's very interesting to think that Mercury is considered as the son of Soma here in this context. So you can see Soma is actually the waxing and waning phase of the moon can be very strong for a Mrigashira native here. Usually these natives themselves will go through waxing and waning phases themselves. And there are time period when they are extremely waxing, there are time period when they are extremely waning, and they need to retreat as well. That kind of thing is very strong. But Mrigashira is also called as the searching star. Now, when you start to search, you definitely need information. You're going to look for details and stuff. That kind of thing is very strong. And the Mrigashira is also called as the deer-headed nakshatra as well. So usually with this placement, there is a lot of searching that happens. And usually, initially it begins with searching for knowledge, eventually it develops to searching for spiritual knowledge. So I've seen that kind of an evolution happens very, very strongly in Mrigashira nakshatra. And of course, Mercury is the karaka for education. Mercury is a karaka for Vidya. So definitely there is eventually this growth of knowledge will lead to the growth of spiritual knowledge as well. So that is definitely a theme with Mrigashira. Now, Ardha is a very interesting kind of nakshatra because here you find the deity is actually Rudra. Rudra is basically Shiva. He is a god of destruction. He is the one who oversees end of times. He is a god who ensures that whatever begins is having a destruction. That actually has an ending. So with Ardra, though, what is interesting is that because it's a Rahu ruled nakshatra, you will see a flavor of social media and writing becoming very, very strong. Now, Rudra was the god who is famous for his screaming. He is the one who is howling. So now you can think of the metaphorical howling as basically you being active in social media and you're literally writing your thoughts down. That's the way to think
the
about
open
Ardha.
mouth of Rahu, right?
Exactly that. Yeah, exactly that. So social media is basically that, and you can see now in Gemini, which is the natural third house of the zodiac. Usually these natives will be active in social media. These natives do very well in marketing. They do very well in digital media and so on. And that's a very natural kind of a thing here. And that's also bringing the media element of Mercury. Mercury being the planet that is linked with media and writing and so on as well. So you might be Shiva might be screaming, and you writing out something online can easily be the link that is playing out here between the deities. There's no problem there. It's a direct match as well. But Purnavasu, what is interesting is that Purnavasu, the deity here is Aditi. So here you are actually the motherly side of Aditi comes out in many ways. So usually these natives, these are the natives who are very good at teaching children. I've seen that they are very natural, primary school teachers and so on. I've seen that kind of thing becoming very strongly present here. And Purnavasu is also like the mother, carrying the mother energy, who's actually helping out the child as well. That's very, very strong. And we have to remember Aditi was the mother of the 12 Adityas. So many times I've seen these natives are actually students. They actually are teachers to very great students. I've seen that. So they can actually help out, bring out the best in their students. That's one thing I've strongly seen with the Purnavasu placements. But also Purnavasu is definitely having the symbol of an arrow and a bow, right? So that's also a straightforward theme, which is kind of showing the use of hands as well. That's very strong. So that is one more theme that can be very, very strong. Now, yeah, go ahead, Katya.
No, I didn't know that. I didn't put that two together.
Yeah, right, exactly that. So you can see now going to Virgo sign, the nakshatras are Uttara Phalguni, Hasta and Chitra. Now Uttara Phalguni is actually the nakshatra that is connected with the Aryaman. Aryaman is the chief amongst the elders. So he's the the government official whose stamp you need to ensure your documents are ratified. And many times you'll see these natives are linked with social services and so on. These are the natives who are very good chance that they are dealing with a lot of documents at the same time. They're dealing with a lot of agreements, corporate kind of agreements at the same time and so on. You'll see that very frequently with Uttara Phalguni. And Uttara Phalguni is also a marriage placement. It is the contractual placement. Now this is the Uttara Phalguni is the actual contract that is being signed between two parties. Now, even marriage is also a contract. It is signed between the husband and the wife. In front of the God. Whereas a contract, a business contract, is signed in the eyes of the law. So you will see that that kind of Uttara Phalguni is carrying that kind of a nakshatra, that kind of an energy, and definitely more importantly, Mercury is also the paper. So you basically signing contracts on paper. That's also an interesting link there. Now, Hasta is also very fascinating nakshatra here because Hasta is having the deity of Savitur. Savitur is the famous deity who is linked with Gayatri mantra. Now, Gayatri, the goddess Gayatri, is considered to be the center of all the Vedas. It is from her all the Vedas have come forth. There are 4 Vedas, right? So, and Savitur is actually the intelligence that is bestowed by the goddess Gayatri. That is a concept there. Now, that is why the Gayatri mantra is a very powerful mantra to chant to increase your intelligence. So usually chanting the Gayatri mantra 108 times, even by children, that's very good. Listening to Gayatri mantra is extremely powerful. Having a Gayatri mantra routine is a very powerful thing. In fact, astrologers are required. Some gurus insist upon astrologers to chant Gayatri mantra to enhance your intelligence. So that is a very strong thing here. And again, Mercury is the planet of intelligence, the planet of intellect. So you'll see people with strong Mercury, they are actually great writers. You can see that very easily.
Yeah, because Hasta is the hand, so.
Exactly that, yeah. So that's the other aspect there, So Hasta is also the hands, the hands is what you use for writing. In this day and age, you'll see typing, typewriters, typists and so on, that kind of thing. You'll see that these natives are very comfortable dealing with documents. They have a natural inclination towards that. They're fine with holding records of all the bills that they had and so on. Usually these are the productivity experts of the zodiac with Hasta. Actually, that's what I've seen. Now, going to the final nakshatra of Chitra. Chitra is very interesting because now you are actually going to the slightly artistic side of Mercury. Here what happens to Chitra, it's the Chitra literally translates as pictures. On social media, you basically post pictures, So usually I've seen with Chitra, these natives are extremely active on social media, especially by posting pictures. I've seen that usually in this day and age, I've seen they are more likely to be active on Instagram more than like Facebook. That's one thing I've seen. Usually these are the natives who like to be very much picture oriented. But these are also the natives who can be very good at handling the technical aspects behind a picture as well. Like handling the digital camera, for instance, or handling the DSLR camera, or handling the actual media equipment and so on to create pictures, the movie equipment and so on. So usually the knowledge that is linked with a particular skill is very strong with Chitra. So here, what is interesting with Chitra, we'll definitely look at it when Venus is being covered. Venus is actually getting debilitated in Chitra. So you'll see always that there is an artistic kind of bend here also. Indirectly, there'll be an artistic kind of bend. But you're more likely to see the technical kind of side of the artistry that is involved. So people who are involved in production, media production, people who are involved in healthcare and so on, that kind of thing can become very, very strong as well. So again, you can see how Mercury is nakshatra energies are actually nakshatras. These nakshatras are definitely describing energies of Mercury. It's an interesting thing. Now, finally, looking at the nakshatras where Mercury is getting debilitated, exalted, and the Mula Trikona. So Mercury is actually getting debilitated in Uttarabhadrapada Nakshatra. Uttarabhadrapada Nakshatra is actually having the deity of Ahirbudnya. So I forgot to mention the deity here for Chitra. Chitra is actually having the deity of Vishwakarma, who is the celestial architect. So this is the architect who is dealing with all the blueprints of all the things. So again, that's details and a lot of detail-oriented placement with Chitra and so on. That's a very, very strong thing there. Now, Uttarabhadrapada is a nakshatra whose deity is actually Ahirbudnya. Ahirbudnya is a serpent who is sleeping at the bottom of the ocean. So many times with this placement, these natives tend to get stuck because of the pressure they are in. That's a common theme I've seen. But usually, and eventually over a period of time, they tend to awaken that serpent that is sleeping. Usually, there's a very strong placement with Kundalini energies. I've seen that. These are the water dragons of the zodiac. That's one thing I've seen. And many times you'll see a strong link with abstract kind of thinking. These natives will be gifted in that. Now in Hasta, it's the detail-oriented thinking, where literally things are in your hands and you can actually be very specific with what is happening. Whereas in Uttarabhadrapada and in Pisces sign in general, it's more the realm of the subconscious. So the abstract kind of thinking is a gift that these natives will carry. But Mercury will find itself challenging here because of the depth. It is unable to get to the surface, to the earth, and now it's forced to go down to the depth. it's not an easy placement for Mercury in general, because of the specific energy of details and education and stuff like that with that is linked with Mercury. Now with the Uttarabhadrapada, suddenly these natives are forced to like stay still for some time, because of the pressure that they do carry. Now we covered Hasta again, but it's very easy to understand why Hasta can be considered as the nakshatra where Mercury is getting exalted, because Savitur is there, the deity of intelligence is there, Gayatri Devi is associated there, the hands are associated there, and so on. So very straightforward, you can say why Hasta is carrying the energies of Mercury, both in its exaltation placement and it's also its Mulatrikon placement. So exaltation is equivalent to a resort kind of a place for Mercury. Mercury feels at its best here. It's like it's a resort there. Hasta, you could say 15 to 20 degrees of Hasta is also considered to be the Mulatrikon for Mercury. So that particular portion is basically linked as the portion where Mercury feels comfortable at its own home base, really. So that is what is happening there. Now let me demonstrate this particular nakshatras again through one of the simple associations for Mercury. So let's look at that. So Mercury is also linked with memory in general. So now I'm just going to go over certain memory techniques. So one technique is basically, okay, you take notes with your laptop. Well, don't take notes with your laptop. Take notes with your hands, So usually that's a good thing.
Yeah.
To take notes with your hands because you are using your hands and brains and so on. That's an additional kind of stimulation with the brain that is happening. Supposed to improve your memory when you do that, And here I mentioned thief because you can think about well, just think about that. We'll just talk about that a little bit later, But just be mindful that
the negative side of Hasta is being the thief.
Exactly that. Yeah,
because Hasta isn't just the hand; it's the fist. And what happens when you clench onto something? You're holding on too tight. You can steal something.
Exactly that. Yeah. So you're right. So there is a point there. Definitely, Hasta can have that kind of shoplifting, or good with hands kind of element, for sure. Now here the other way to actually, here the thing is actually, it's actually cheat sheets, right? So cheat sheets is what is a simple way to, cheat your memory. So basically I just coined it as a thief. Now, when you look at another way to actually improve your memory is actually to, just start walking. Now, a person who was actually walking in ancient times was a messenger. So there's a good chance that if you have a regular walking routine, that's actually improving your Mercury as well. It's also improving your Mercury.
You have to remember
your memory.
the message.
Exactly that. Yeah, you have to remember the message. Then you walk. Then there's a good chance that
right.
you faced heavy consequences if you forgot the message. In that day.
There's something about the repetition of both of those, because when you're writing something, you're repeating what you're hearing. And when you're walking and remembering a message, you're repeating something. And so, and that's something that, one of my best professors in grad school, she did not like us taking notes on laptops. She really wanted us to take handwritten notes. She said there's something magical that happens between your hand and your brain. She said, I don't care if you're just sitting there doodling and drawing a picture. The act of you doodling helps you to encode into your brain what you're hearing.
Right. No, definitely. I think she's right. Definitely she's right. Science supports her. Basically, you're increasing your brain processing involvement, which is actually improving your memory on account of that. Mm-hmm. Now, so definitely, and it's very, what you mentioned about repetition is one more thing we'll cover in the next slide. So that's a good point, Katya. I'll highlight that again. Now, remember that Mercury is actually also getting debilitated in the natural 12th house of the sleep. And sleep is actually one way to best help you remember. Having regular sleep and getting enough sleep is the best thing for you to improve your memory. That is definitely the case here, So again, it's very important astrologically to understand and realize that Mercury is actually getting debilitated in the 12th house of Pisces, where it's sleeping. So if you're not sleeping enough, that debilitation energy can really spoil your memory as well. So that's
And
one
that's
thing just
a
to be aware
secret
about.
connection with the moon as well, because, Hasta Nakshatra is ruled by the moon. And if you have
Yep.
to sleep to help you to remember, then that shows a mystical link with the moon.
Definitely. Moon has an aspect of storing our memories, for sure. Definitely. Moon is supposed to carry the memories of our ancestors even. So yeah, so your lifetime memory will also be reflected by the moon. So definitely there is a very strong thing there. That's good actually. Now let's see. So now there are some more techniques, but here when I share these techniques, it will kind of make sense. One memory technique is actually called as the method of loci, in which you kind of associate different objects of you want to memorize at different parts of your particular path that you take. So whenever you say you're very familiar with the house you live in, you can associate memories and portions or spaces of your house with different objects that you want to remember. And this is a very famous method used by many. That is actually the method of loci. The second way to remember again is basically through gestures. So many times, actors try to memorize their scripts and their dialogues with their hand movements and their gestures. So that's a way to actually memorize that.
Huh.
So when you begin to use, you can actually say you're finding challenging with regard to understanding certain or memorizing certain things. You can actually try to program that with certain gestures with your body and stuff like that, with your hands and so on. So that is one thing definitely that can happen. And it can be they say the crazier the gesture, the easier to memorize also. That's the easier thing also. And then the third thing and the technique to actually improve is the actual repetition. So what you are mentioning, Katya, like how you're repeating things, and by repeating the same thing again and again and again, it's an easy way to memorize. In fact, that's the best way to memorize any mantra. The best way is actually to simply repeat the same mantra again and again. Even the 1,000 names of Vishnu, or 1,000 names of goddess, or Lalita Sahasranama, Vishnu Sahasranama, which are very powerful mantras. You can memorize them easily if you keep on repeating that mantras over a period of time. And I've seen that. I myself have studied. I've seen people who do that. They just know it by memory because they have been repeating it. So, but that is definitely a memory technique there.
Yeah, that's what I needed when I learned choreography when I was dancing a lot. I had the hardest time with choreography at first. And then it was like literally I had to train my brain in a different way to memorize things in a certain way. And it was just a matter of repetition. That's all it was. And once I repeated things, it was like I needed it less and less repeated.
Right.
It's a muscle that you have to strengthen just like any other muscle, your memory.
Yeah, exactly that. Exactly that. So the more you train, the more you memorize as well. It's as simple as that. So now the other technique of memory is actually called as chunking, in which, so you say you are to remember this long sequence of letters. You can just chunk them into 4 different pieces. Now you have easily memorable chunks. So you can easily memorize FBI, TWA, CIA, and IBM. It's much more easier to memorize than FBI, TWAC, and so on. So it's a technique where you're breaking pieces down to details and stuff. So you're chunking a couple of meaningful pieces together, which is actually helping you out in your memory. The next one is actually called as association. How to remember a name. So sure, Ben with giant ears, or like Dylan with red beard. Immediately you are associating one particular fact with this particular name. So it's a simple thing. That's the other aspect there. So association is another aspect. The next one I would say is actually acronym, in which you can make say you have a long phrase you have to memorize. And I think, in the US, acronyms are very popular, right? So like orange juice is like OJ, and,
right.
So CIA, yeah, that kind of thing is very easily. So US is definitely a country where acronyms are very much used, that kind of thing. And all the texting kind of acronyms are basically that, that's the other aspect. And then finally, the technique is to visualization, in which you are actually visualizing something crazy that you're memorizing. So say you are to remember. Okay, I just went back. Say you have to remember Gary the Bull. Now you are actually remembering Gary the Bull relaxing on the sofa, and that is actually, if you remember Gary the Bull relaxing the sofa, that can actually be a simple visualization technique to remember the capital of Bulgaria, which is actually Sofia. So you are remembering Gary the Bull, which is actually representing Bulgaria, and Sofa is basically reminding you of Sofia. So it's a crazy visualization that is actually helping you out. Now it's very interesting. Symbols used here in this visualization is also representing each thing. So Gary the Bull is having a crazy hat, crazy cap on his head, which is symbolizing he is the capital. He's the captain of the city, or that kind of. So that is one way to improve your memory, right? So these are different memory techniques.
And these all are about learning styles. That's the thing, Mercury's about learning. And we all have different ways that we learn. Like for me,
exactly
I'm a kinetic learner, and I'm a procedural learner. Like, you can't, I'm not an oral learner. Like you can't just tell me the instructions, expect me to understand. You have to walk me through it and show me, and then I've got it, no problem. You know what I mean?
Right.
Other people are visual learners, and they need to read the instructions. They have to have, the end product in front of them. They have to see it,
Right.
So these are all ways that we learn.
Now let me take it to the next level. So let me ask, which nakshatra, which we discussed so far, would you associate with, say, method of loci?
Oh gosh. Well, that would be a spatial learner.
Spatial learner, right? So
yeah,
let's see. So
I mean, that's
now, Yeah. So what I would actually, so what I would actually say, architect is a good one, but I would definitely say you can think about Mrigashira.
Okay.
Mrigashira, because the path of the deer, and you are linking the path with your memory. You're the path. A deer takes a particular path, right? A deer is always taking a particular path. So the method of loci is something in which you are always you're considering your path and linking that with the objects you have to memorize. Now, what about gestures, and what about the gestural technique? Which nakshatra do you think?
Hands. Yeah. I mean, that's Hasta.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, that's Hasta. You're right. That can easily be Hasta as well. But here I'm actually saying it as Ardra. So these are the natives and so on who are like playing it out. The drama queens, exactly. With Ardra and so on. Now, what about which nakshatra can be the repetition technique?
Repetition.
That should be an easy thing. I would say that was actually Punarvasu. Punarvasu is basically
return of the light.
Yeah, exactly that. So the return of the light is actually the repetition energy that you see. That's exactly that. So the arrow that is actually coming back to you.
Let me shut this door. Hold on. Sorry.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. 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 So now with the association technique, which nakshatra do you think could be the association technique?
Oh gosh. Let's see. Association. I don't know.
So I would actually say it is Uttara Falguni, because it's a marriage nakshatra.
Right? Community
nakshatra. You're associating, associating one fact. You're marrying one fact with the other fact. That kind of thing is happening.
Right.
Now, acronym. What about which nakshatra could be the acronym kind of a technique?
Oh, let me think. Jyotisha?
Well,
no.
Well, Jyotisha is not bad. Jyotisha is definitely not bad. Not bad guess. I would definitely say that. But here I am just using the acronym as basically Hasta. Yeah, right. That's correct. Hasta. So and finally the visualization technique is Chitra. That should have been the easiest one. but yeah, visualization is easiest chitra. So your visual picture and so on, So again, and I have left the chunking left to be open. It's anyone is very open. Chunking can easily be something linked with any of the Mercury placements. It can be Ashlesha event. It could be even Jyeshta event where you're breaking things down to smaller pieces, or it can be Virgo Nakshatras as well. But the key thing is that here what I've demonstrated is that you can understand functions of Mercury literally playing out with aspects that are linked with Mercury as well. Especially the nakshatra energies are playing out through the aspects of Mercury. So Mercury is linked with memory, and you will see that exactly. The nakshatras of Mercury are exactly how the memory techniques are actually playing out as well. So again, this is just so that's the end of my presentation. But just to be aware again, what I was saying in the beginning as well. Understanding the nakshatras linked with Mercury can help us in understanding Mercury itself in its deeper sense. So Mercury, as we know, as I demonstrated now, is linked with memory, and I've demonstrated how the nakshatras of Mercury can actually play out into what is basically a signification of Mercury, which is memory. So that is one topic that can be great potential for research for many people.
Now his name is Budh. And Budh's parents are the moon and Jupiter?
And Tara, Jupiter's wife, actually. Yeah.
Oh.
Right. So there's an interesting thing with Budh in the sense, because Budh is actually also linked with Buddhi. Buddhi is the intellect, or the how clever you are, how smart you are, how intelligent you are. So
and that's the moon of Buddha. So explain that connection.
Yeah, definitely. For you to be intelligent, for you to have a strong intellect, you definitely need to have strong memory. That's a straightforward thing. Definitely, and Budh, you need to understand the basic details as well. Now, usually the story was that Tara, wife of Jupiter, eloped with Budh. Eloped with Chandra, the student. And then, Jupiter came to find this out, and he waged a war against Chandra. Now, Shukracharya, his rival, actually supported Moon at this point. And then there was a war between Devas and Asuras. Now, eventually, the war came to an end when Jupiter was willing to adopt the child of Tara and, Chandra. So what happens interestingly here is that you can see the themes in which your intellect initially is based from the mind you have. Your initial raw material is basically the mind you carry, but then eventually that is adopted by Jupiter. So whatever our parents taught us in our own home is basically the straightforward initial intellect that we carry. But then it is adopted by Jupiter, which is our spirituality, which is the education system, the whole schooling system, all that. So Jupiter's adoption is actually pointing to this particular evolution of our own intellect, how our intellect is molded by our childhood home, which is Moon and Tara, and then eventually that is molded by Jupiter, which is the higher education system, and you can think about Jupiter also as the universal education system, the spirituality that is driving us eventually. So usually Budh adopted by Jupiter also points to the simple fact that eventually our speech will reflect our beliefs as well very strongly. Our speech will also reflect the spirituality that we carry as well, the spiritual energies that we carry as well, because Mercury is also speech. So that's the other aspect there. So there's a lot of depth with that particular mythological story.
Right.
But yeah.
Now, and this is a real difference in, Western versus Vedic interpretations, because in Vedic astrology, we say moon is the mind, whereas we usually think of Mercury as the mind. But this really shows the intimate connection between the mind and memory and emotion.
Yep.
And in the physical body, in the brain where that takes place, is in a very special location in the back called the limbic system. And they still don't understand everything about the limbic system, but we do know that it is the seat of our memories, and it has a very intimate association with our emotions. And so just unpacking that a little bit in astrology, we can see that, Mercury and Moon are if Moon is the mind, then Mercury, then explain that a little bit. What is your interpretation of that?
Yeah, the limbic system is definitely, you can think about the subconscious system, that is there. And, Moon, Rahu and Ketu are definitely linked with the subconscious energies as well. Moon is the emotions that we carry, but most of the time it's the emotions that are present in our subconscious that are actually pushing us in many directions, But what is interesting with the Mercury here is that, as you mentioned, there is a key to memory. A big key to our mind is our emotional state, and even it said that ideally we should be training our emotions as well when you are studying something. So keying certain emotions to certain knowledge can extremely be very powerful. So when you're sad, you're studying, your memory is not going to be great, but when you're joyful, when you're grateful and so on, your memory will actually expand, and that's the limbic system is definitely something that can be programmed as well, with yogic techniques, breathing techniques and so on. There's a lot of meditations that are out there that is actually retraining that limbic system. So what happens with that, when you begin to work with these techniques, when you begin to chant the mantras and so on, and it's that a lot of times the limbic system gets retrained, or it improves in many other fronts. Usually the hormones are also a lot of balancing. It's a balancing act of all the hormones as well with regard to our own health, with regard to our own best version of our health. So corresponding system would also be linked with our own memory as well, in my opinion. So I think the limbic system definitely might be a big factor. But key thing is that you can begin to reprogram the limbic system by training your emotions. So I think that is the Moon and Mercury particular link. So Moon being the father of Mercury, and Jupiter being the spirituality that is eventually influencing Mercury and
they all work together. I mean, think about it. Yeah. Like when, a pandemic happens, what's the first thing that happens? You feel something. You don't think something. You feel something. Your body feels something. You react. And then the thoughts come in. And the thoughts are dependent upon what we felt. And what we felt is dependent upon Jupiter, which is our beliefs and our, our religion.
Yep. Exactly that.
They're all very intimately tied, but it all starts with the emotion, and the emotion decides what our thoughts are about it.
Definitely. Now, this is a very subtle secret here with the emotion, because you see that many times when many folks are chanting mantras or saying prayers or anything like that, usually they repeat it as words, it's just words. But when you add in the factor of emotion, you're emotionally charging each of those mantras. Every word, every spell you make, or every mantra you chant, that is actually supercharging that effect of that mantra because of this. So many times there are certain mantras that you are supposed to chant with certain specific emotions as well, and to actually activate that particular energy of that particular god or goddess in a strong fashion.
Yeah.
They call it as the bhava. You chant a certain mantra with a certain bhava actually. Many times, many people miss out on that fact. You'll see people who have chanted mantras. And of course, you chant the mantra for a long time, the vibrations will eventually seep in and so on. You'll get the benefit of chanting the mantra. So, but then say instead you start chanting a mantra with pure emotion. Now it's taking to the next level,
It's exponential. Yeah.
exponential there. Yeah, exactly that.
Because the heart's an electrical unit, you know? I mean,
Yeah,
it's
exactly
gonna
that. Yeah.
amplify, but yeah, you have to feel it. And that's the whole thing with visualization, you know, with Mercury.
Yeah.
You know, when we're visualizing, you know, manifesting something, you have to feel what it's going to feel like to, you know, get that thing that you're trying to manifest. You can't just, you know, say, oh, you know, I really want to get that house, or I want to get that degree, or gosh, I really want to get married, or whatever, you know, and you keep thinking it and thinking and thinking. Well, the thinking isn't going to bring it to you. You have to feel like what it's going to feel like when you're on the other side. So if you want to be a wealthy person, you have to dress like a wealthy person, even if you're poor, because that puts you emotionally in the state where you want to be. And that's like attracts like, and then boom, that magnetic field kicks in, and there you are.
Yeah, I think definitely, you know, from a nakshatra perspective, I think that is the secret of the Hasta nakshatra, which is ruled by the moon, but that is where Mercury exalts. The key thing is to link your emotions with your routines, you know. This is the 6 hours of Virgo as well. So, you know, definitely. I think what you said, Katya, is definitely how it should be, you know, like you should be chanting mantras, or you should be actually displaying that particular emotional state of what you wish to achieve or manifest as well. And that's easy to do. You know, you don't need anyone's help or so on. And you'll see correspondingly that the rest of the story will actually play out. You know, so initially it's moon, then Tara comes in, which is your opportunities in life, and then Buddha is born, you make plans and so on. Eventually Jupiter comes in, which is actual luck and fortune, which the universe is also bringing, you know. So yeah, definitely. Great, Katya. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for this wonderful talk about Budh, Mercury. And this is, you know, in a series of the Navagrahas. And so we'll be doing the next one on Venus. And but if you are interested in studying with Santhip, you can contact him on Facebook or on Instagram. He has both accounts available. And pretty soon he'll get his website, I think.
Yeah, sure.
But in the meantime, you know, he's with Cosmic Insights. And so you can always go to, I think it's .org. Is it cosmicinsights.org?
Yeah, Cosmic Insights shop.com, I think, yeah. Cosmic Insights shop.com, yeah. Yeah, okay. Just Google my name, you'll come across the website, so yeah.
Yeah, and if you have any problem, you know, with any of that, just contact me and I'll send you the information. But
yeah, sure.
Thank you so much, Santhip. I appreciate it. And please stay healthy. And you know, we'll get through this pandemic. But you know, this is definitely a time for Mercury to kick in and give us some blessings. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Kathy.
Namaste.
Namaste.